What's happening, my debt-free millionaire zealots? Hey, and all future debt-free millionaires. This is Zach Edwards with another debt-free millionaire podcast and personal finance course. So this is season 1 of our podcast, which is all about personal finance. So you're gonna learn about everything that to do with personal finance and how to make things better for your life. Hopefully that means getting out of debt. Hopefully that means becoming a millionaire. And hopefully even better than both of those is when you become a debt-free millionaire. And we're going to go over some of those things today. First off, that I want to explain is becoming debt-free is when you have no one that you owe money to and no company that you owe money to from a previous debt or future debt. Now, this does mean that you're still going to be paying your monthly bills, but you will not owe anyone for reoccurring amounts because of past choices and basically purchases. So this is what we are hoping to do, is to get you out of debt. And by doing that, we're going to make sure that you are more stress-free than you were in the past. There is so much of a burden that's put on the American shoulders because we have to get into debt, because we have to own things, because we have to buy things. And because we have to buy things, own things, and have to have it now, we get into a lot of debt. So how do we stay out of debt when we get there? So let's go into this topic because this is very important. Because a lot of people, they'll get out of debt and then they'll lose the drive to stay out of debt, and they will just go right back into the same places they are and will still have the same burdens. You know, one of the biggest reasons for divorce is actual financial issues, whether it's losing a job, whether it's somebody being too frugal and the other person not being on the same page. We want you all to be on the same page. And especially if you're youth listening to this and you're able to be debt-free before you get into a relationship, you're going to help that person to understand why it's so important to be debt-free. So hopefully they will feel the same relief that you feel, and you can go further with that relationship. If you cannot, if you are on completely different pages, this will also bring a conversation into your possible marriage, because you want to know who you're marrying. If you marry someone too quick and you don't know how they spend money, that's going to be a financial burden. If you're one way and they're the other, this conversation needs to come out. Am I saying you shouldn't get married if you're on opposing sides? I'm saying you should consider talking about it and finding out where you both are. And if you cannot be in agreement and you're going to have arguments when you're married, yes, then it's probably not the best person to get married to. Now, if you can talk to them and come to a compromise between it, because marriage is all about compromises, then yes, they might be the great person to marry. But this actually does need to be on your page, because you don't want to get a divorce within 3 to 4 years, maybe even 13 years. That's what happened to us, to my former marriage. It took us 13 years to finally say, you know what, we're done. And it was more on one side than the other, but I won't go into that. But what's going on is that a lot of things happen because of financial stresses that are caused by not being on the same page. And this is not just finances, this is like everything. So how do you stay out of debt? Well, you make wise decisions. Again, you're not going to go out and buy a car by financing it when you got rid of all your other debt. Instead, you're going to save up, because you now know how to save. You're going to save up and then pay that with cash. You're going to save up 10 grand to buy a used car. You're going to save up 20 to 30 grand to buy a new car, because you don't want to get into that debt anymore. You don't want that stress to be over your head. And I'll tell you what, every single piece of debt that you owe is stress on your mind. You might say, oh no, that's not a worry. I don't care about that. I'm taking care of it. I'm paying it when I need it. No, it is stressing your mind even by small amounts. So when you get a taste of being debt-free after having debt, you never want to go back. 1 second, my cat out, my office. Okay, but here's the thing. This is why it's so important. It's not just, oh, right now would be a great thing, or tomorrow would be a great thing. No, let's go back in a little bit of history. Let's go back to 2020. Okay, 2020, well, 2019, everything was flourishing. It was a great economy. We were all having a great time and making a ton of money, spending a ton of money. Well, if you knew history, especially when it came to the economy, like I did, I called that there was going to be a recession. So Trump was in office. China, not California, China had just discovered that they had COVID released into their population. Now, they actually knew that it was from a lab in China, but until now, we didn't have the proof to prove it. We had 15 organizations inside the United States that basically said, hey, we have this illness that's coming from the China Wuhan lab, and we need to keep this all quiet. So they shut down. They even censored people online. Facebook was horrible at it. YouTube, horrible at it. Twitter, every single social media that network out there that saw you write about how the virus was coming from the Wuhan lab, you were shut off. You were censored for saying anything like that. And why was that? It was probably because they were trying to keep down the panic. But the problem was the panic was there because there was a disease there that was released on the earth. It wasn't the fact of where it came from. It was that there was a disease. And funny enough, it was the US government that was actually paying for that research through a nonprofit that just recently we said we will never again fund because of what they did with COVID. Wait a second. Those were all censored words. Okay, so disregard all that. We're not talking about that right now. We're talking about what happened during the pandemic. Okay, so it was supposed to be 90 days of lockdown in order to stop the spread of the virus. Well, come to find out, most of the states did not let off at 3 months. It took them longer. Some of them even took over a year to unlock down. Kids could not go back to school. They did remote learning. And you know how much learning loss they lost? Huge amounts. It was huge. The amount of loss that we had for our children was dramatic. And it wasn't just up here in the sense of learning academics. It was right here. Kids could not see how you're supposed to respond to certain acts, certain feelings, because they couldn't see the person's face. They only saw those at home. And even people at home sometimes were wearing masks inside the home. I don't know why, but that's what they chose to do. That was their decision. Okay, so because of this, some of the states finally started opening up. And you know that their death rates actually stayed pretty even with those in the states that kept locking down, and yet their economies came back a lot faster. People got out of depression a lot faster. So all these different things. Now, here's an interesting thing. Now, there's politics whenever it comes to looking at graphs, going online and checking out articles. But here's something that's irresputable. You can't dispute it. Sorry. You cannot dispute this. Stop looking in the United States. Look at other countries. Okay. The countries that did not lock down. Where were they? South Korea, Sweden, and so forth. And there was a bunch of others. What happened to their economies? Their death rate stayed fairly low, and their economies stayed fairly high. What happened in the UK, Italy, France, Poland, most of the European countries, and even the United States? Our economies tanked. They were destroyed for a matter of time. What happens when they tanked? Okay, so Trump was the first one to do this, and then Biden followed up with it. So Trump released a check to everyone for $1,400. That's every person in your family got $1,400. And then they sent out another one that was $600. So it was $2,000 that went out to the public because they were being locked down and they weren't letting them out. So the government had to pay for them because people could not afford, especially if they lost their jobs. Some of the jobs they could not do remotely. They were actually physical jobs, plumbing, HVAC, all these different contractors, home building. These were all locked down. You could not do them. And because of that, a lot of people lost their income. Well, so then Biden came into office and he gave out another $1,400. Do you remember the example I showed you from history? His name was Mansa Musa. He was the leader of the Mali Empire. And what did he do? He went to Mecca, and on the way to Mecca, he went through Ethiopia. Well, on his way through Ethiopia, he had planned out to bring huge amounts of gold. I mean, there's a lot of gold that came with him. All of his slaves were carrying gold. All of his camels were carrying gold. And they just gave it out to everyone. And everyone was like, wow, he's so generous that he's giving out all this stuff to all these people. And then he went off to Mecca, and then on his way back, what happened? If you remember history, he found out that the Ethiopian market, the gold market in Ethiopia, had tanked. Everyone had so much gold, a loaf of bread, and these are not actual numbers because I don't actually know the numbers, and no one has that in history. A loaf of bread went from like $1 to $100, or a gold piece to 100 gold pieces, because everyone had gold. The value of gold had tanked. So what happens if the government infuses us with money? Okay, if they're not printing it and they're just using it out the taxes, then it's recirculating the money. What happens if they have to print the money in order to give that money out? They're infusing a ton of gold into a system that used to live off of gold, and then all of a sudden the value of gold went down. Now, replace gold with dollars, and the exact same thing happened. And we skyrocketed in our inflation. So something recent, Joe Biden wanted to say, hey, when I came into office, the inflation rate was at 9.4%, or 9.9%. Actually, Joe, it wasn't 9.9 until July of 2022. That was 18 months into your office. You're into your administration when that actually happened. The truth is, it was at 1.4. Why was it 1.4? Well, that's easy, because during COVID, inflation went down because people weren't buying. If people aren't buying, demand goes down, inflation goes down. So obviously, what you said was completely false. Now, the truth is that before the pandemic, it was around a 2%, which is exactly where the Fed wants to be. It was at the perfect rate at that point. But what happened was when Trump and then Biden decided to infuse all this money into the system, printing it all, that's when inflation happened. I can't say that it was just Biden that increased the inflation, because Trump had also put money in and given out checks to everyone. Now, at the same time, those checks that went out to everyone were not all printed money. The printed money came afterwards, when we infused it with a whole bunch of other money that was going in. And because of that, that's when inflation started happening. 18 months into the Biden administration, July 2022. That's when inflation happened. So if you had actually purchased goods before, like if you bought food, for instance, and I'm going to hit this hard. If you bought food before you had the pandemic happen, what would have happened? Would you have paid those inflated rates? No, you wouldn't have. Because you didn't have to pay those inflated rates because you had food in storage, you would have actually made it through and saved hundreds, even thousands of dollars on the amount of inflation that we've seen since the Biden administration has come in. Now, the inflation rate might have come down, but over all the time since Biden became president, prices have increased by about 50%. Yes, 50%. McDonald's has gone up 100%. Places like Popeyes has gone up 86%. Grocery stores have gone up about 50%. Gas has gone up over 50%, 50 to 100%, nearing 100%. Because in Missouri, it was $1.25 in January of 2021. So January 2021, it was $1.25. What is it right now? It's $3 for gas. So it has almost tripled in that time. So inflation has actually gone up 50% since the Biden administration started. And because it went up 50% year over year, not just between now and each year, because that's what they register. When they say inflation was 10%, that was from the year before. Now, we're talking about between 2024 and 2021, January 2021. Most of the prices have gone up 50%. That's how much inflation has hit us in the last 3 years. So, going on, the third thing that you want to do. So the first thing, when you want to stay out of debt, you start paying everything for cash. The second thing is you start doing a food storage and start buying food, and also creating an emergency fund. An emergency fund is 3 to 6 months worth of food. or sorry, it's not food, funds. Funds, basically the amount of money that you would spend, your expenses, 3 to 6 months worth of expenses, and putting that into a savings account and sitting on it. Just put it into a CD, a short range CD, and then renewing it every time. And the reason why you want to do that is because you want to make sure that your money is secure. Whatever you would spend in 3 to 6 months, you want to make sure that's secure in case of a pandemic happening. If it doesn't increase in interest all the time, so you're just making money off of that money. Now, if you just set it into a bank account, it's going to lose money because inflation is still going up. So unless your interest rate inside your bank account is as much as the inflation rate, then you're losing money in a bank. But here's the thing. The emergency fund is essential because even if it's losing a little bit of money, you're still gaining a little bit of interest. You can still restock it a little bit, but you want to have that money just in case something happens in life. You lose a job, there's a pandemic. Anything that's happening, you want to be prepared. So again, first thing you want to do is start paying with cash. As soon as you get out of debt, start paying with cash, which means savings. The next thing is to create a food storage. Start saving food. Now, I'm not saying bulk up on everything. Double up the amount of food that you eat. If you get a thing of peanut butter, get 2. If you get a thing of jelly, get 2. Butter, 2. Eggs, those are things you use right away and you can't store them for a long period of time. So you might want to think of getting some sort of eggs that you can store, which is more of a powdered eggs. It's food storage. But look into food storage and getting something that you can hold on to for a long period of time. But here's the thing. Here's the great thing about this is canned food, especially ones that you're going to eat, buy them and then slowly use them. You're going to use up every piece of food that you buy as long as you don't let it expire. So buy up more food. I'm going to show you the reason for doing this. And this is the essential reason why you want to start up food storage. Okay, I'm going to bring up this graph. Okay. Product shortages. Okay, look at these different shortages that happened ever since 2019. So basically, COVID happened right about here. So everything looks like it's going great, and then the shortages happened. What happened? Food shortage. No one was making the food. No one was producing the food. No one was manufacturing the food. No one was packaging the food. So shortages skyrocketed for food. Furniture, no one was building the furniture. Okay, you don't need to do that because look at that. Down here, there's no shortages now. 2022, there are still shortages for food. Now, what it doesn't show in here was medicine as well. Medicine is also with food, beverages. Medicine was the same thing. We had huge shortages of it. Some of the other ones, electronics. You don't need electronics. So the shortages were very low. Health, that's the big one. So yes, you see a little bit of health, but we had a good amount of shampoos and conditioners and things like that. The ones we didn't have that are not on this health, that does not cover the medicine. Medication, again, skyrocketed. There was huge shortages of it. So having storage of medication might also be a good thing. But remember, those expire, so you do want to be able to reuse them. Here's the thing. This is the biggest thing that I want to show you. This is what people don't talk to you about. Because everyone wants to tell you about gold, mostly those that are profiting from advertising gold. Or crypto. Those that are in the crypto market are profiting from telling you to buy crypto. I'm in the crypto market. I would tell you to buy crypto, except I'm going to show you something that's even better. Gold. Those that promote gold are telling, or I think I said gold already. Stock market are those that are in the stock market and want you to buy the stock market. Here's the thing. Look at this one. Annual inflation for food prices. Now, remember, this is year over year inflation. So between here and here, it's actually twice as much because it's the same thing here, year over year. 1 year was here, plus another one this year. So it wasn't just 10%, it is now 20% in 2022. So it went up 20% because this is 1 year, and then an additional year doubles that. So it was at 22% inflation. This is food right here. The red one in the United States. Emerging markets, yeah, they didn't have as much of a fluctuation. Look at the EU, Europe, and also America. The inflationary rate for food skyrocketed. I had food storage. I lived a lot of my food storage. I did not use it all up. Anytime I found a bargain, I could buy more. But I saved so much money by buying a quarter cow. I bought a quarter of a cow, which means steak, ground beef. I bought it twice. And the one time I bought it like $2 a pound. Then I bought it at $5 a pound. Now it's dropped down to about $4 a pound. I still saved with at $2 a pound. And if you go to the store, you find steak, you're paying $20 a pound. So I saved a ton by getting food storage in the sense of a cow, because I know I'm going to eat ground beef. I also know I'm going to eat steaks at some point. I try to be sparse on them, but so forth. Now, look at this graph. Sorry, whichever way it is over here. Look at this graph, and now check this out. This is the stock market ever since 2020 to 2021. It stayed pretty constant. This is crypto. So if you want to buy crypto, yes, this is a good reason to buy crypto. But here's the thing. Remember that the dips? Yeah, it had a huge dip. People were worrying about actually having money when it dipped. Remember food. Oops. I need to zoom out a little bit. There we go. It didn't dip. It's still not dipping. It's still going up because it's 4% more than it was last year. Continue to going up. There's no negative inflation. That's when it would have actually dropped. There's no negative inflation. So every piece of food that you buy is food that's saving you money for the future. Look at this. Okay, so this is someone that wants to promote Bitcoin. Bitcoin, again, went up like this. And this is gold. So this is the trying to sell you. Well, gold is over here. That's the price for gold. This is the price for crypto. Yes, it did tank, but it didn't show you the next part where it actually increased again. So again, crypto is a great one to get into, but it is a risk. So only put a certain amount in. Food is a for sure thing. It is 100% because you're going to eat that food. No matter what, you're eating that food. Okay, one last one that I want to show you. Okay, let's go back over here. No, that is the last one. Okay, so think about it. When you get to become debt-free, where do you want to invest your money? That's the fourth thing. Where do you want to invest your money? You want to invest it in your savings for an emergency because that's going to save you if another pandemic happens or you lose a job. But now, what is also going to save you? Food is going to save you. Before you buy gold, before you buy crypto, before you buy stock in the stock market, buy your food because you're always going to need your food. And there is stuff that stores well, and you're going to eat it. Cycle that through. It's a no-brainer, but nobody teaches this stuff. I'm teaching you this stuff because I want you to be self-reliant. Not reliant on the government, not reliant on mom and dad, not reliant on X, Y, or Z. It doesn't matter. You're self-reliant on yourself. I'm going to get you there. I'm going to teach you how to get there. And I'm not just going to teach you how to become debt-free. I'm going to teach you how to be a millionaire. So stay with us. Thank you so much for joining us on this Debt-Free Millionaire Day, this Debt-Free Millionaire podcast. And we are going to make you a debt-free millionaire. Just stick with us and we'll see what we can do and what we can show you. And if you have any questions, please send them our way. Thanks again. Talk to you later. Bye.